Hi, this is Joe with MOMFIT with Joe Peters. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network and the H.E.R Network on Single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Single TV app in the respective iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading, make sure to leave a comment. The app is free. Singo TV can also be reached on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all the smart TVs since 2016. I am your host, Joe, the Unicorn Coach, and I am welcoming you to another episode of MOMFIT with Joe Peters. If you are not following me yet on social media, that is my handle at Joe Unicorn Coach on Facebook and Instagram. I handle my social media personally. So if you are having a challenge, a question, a hard time, if you feel lost in the marathon of motherhood, send me a DM. And if I don't know the answer, I will find somebody, an expert like Alysia, to come and join us in the show so we can support you because our mission is to help you to win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. So, with that being said, we are excited today because we're going to be talking about a cliche topic because everybody talk about it, but we are going to go deep into how we can release the mom guilt and increase our peace. And we are going to do that with the phenomenal Alysia Lyons. Alysia is a mom first, is a life coach, and author second. She's passionate about helping moms become the CEOs of their home life and guiding them to more joy from the inside out. That is the only way. Alysia leads her clients through long lasting neurological shifts to help them ease their guilt and increase their peace. That is one of her pillars with an acronym on PEACE. Alysia, thank you so much for being here. The first thing that I want to ask you is about your phrase. When we were talking about your phrase was ditch mom guilt and find your happy. Let's gonna talk a little bit about why you choose that as the phrase that is your favorite phrase.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. And I know that mom guilt is a little bit of a cliche topic now, but when I started, it was not. Um, I'm like the OG of mom guilt. Um, but what, you know, mom guilt is something that moms think that they just have to carry around. Like, I don't know about you, but when they handed me my son, it felt like they also handed me a sack of mom guilt. Like, I saw in my memories that he was 3 weeks old and I was feeling guilty. Because I posted on Facebook, like, this mom guilt stuff is real. And I don't even know what I was talking about. But when, you know, I'm really passionate about helping moms be more happy. And when I was carrying around a lot of guilt, I wasn't as happy of a mom because I had this, like, guilt feels like 50 pounds of weight just sitting on your shoulders 24/7. And it can show up as worry, and it can show up as overprotection, and it can show up um, in my life. I have this mechanism where I want to leave you before you have a chance to hurt me. And so I was looking at this, 6-year-old little boy who just wanted to cuddle me every morning. And I was thinking, one day you're going to look back at me or look back at your life and say, how come you didn't XYZ? And I can't handle that. And so I started pushing him away now. Then he's 12 now, so I recognized it. But that was what I thought was so dangerous about mom guilt, is that I didn't know that that's what I was doing until I went through this releasing guilt and shame process in my coaching business, with my coaching company, or with my coach. Um, it was like, oh no, that's what's happening. That's what was happening. It wasn't, this is what's happening, I better go fix it. It was the looking back wisdom.
And I love that because when I say that mom guilt's a cliche, it's been so normalized that, and it just make me cringe when I see moms to the point of resignation of just joking about it,
Right.
when in reality is something serious that is taking off our happiness, and that is why it's so important the work that you are doing. Alicia, let's gonna talk a little bit about more of your story. You start a little bit with when your baby was there, how you move into helping moms to be happier and release mom guilt.
Yeah. So I'll give the shorter version. But I found out when my son was 4 years old that the babysitter that I'd left him with was inappropriate, and I did all the things that I could to make it better. Like, I filed a police report, I filed child protective services report, because my belief is that a 13-year-old girl doesn't behave that way unless it's been done to her. And because they lied and said nothing happened, there was no restitution for my son. There was no help for this 13-year-old girl. And so, because those things that I tried failed, I picked up the guilt. Like, it's my fault that I didn't protect him. It's my fault that um, I didn't solve this. I didn't help this little girl. Like, there was all kinds of guilt wrapped up in all of that, and I didn't recognize it at first. It showed up in my life, like I said, as overprotected protection, when family members, people that I did trust, started doing or would do things that I didn't agree with. I would have explosive reactions where it damaged some relationships that I had. Um, and that I still, like, the effects of that I still deal with today. Um, and it's over littler things that, but everything was huge. Everything, I am not making another mistake, was basically what my subconscious was doing. Um, and then I recognized, after I'd been in some with a coach for about a year, I understood a little more about what guilt was. I had gone through some guilt in some other areas of my life that my coach walked me through. And so when I went to the doctor and this subject kind of came up, and I had an irrational reaction as far as I was concerned, um, that I was like, huh, there might be something here. Because I also believe that when a trigger appears, it's because the wound is ready to heal. So I paid attention to that. I had this trigger, and I texted my coach and I said, I think I might feel guilty about something. I still wasn't even really clear on what it was, but she and I walked through this process, and it was because I felt like I was responsible for letting someone hurt my son. And when she walked through this process, it was like 50 to 100 pounds of weight was lifted from my shoulders. And that's when I started interviewing moms. I always knew I wanted to work with moms. I have a little bit of a soft spot for us. We have one of the most difficult and rewarding jobs in the world. Um, and I want us to do it with more happiness and joy. And so I started interviewing moms, and could hear it in their language. They were just guilt here, just like you were saying. Like, it's kind of like laughing it off, and it's not something that's taken seriously. If we knew how serious it was, we would take it more seriously. But it feels like it's just something that we got to live with. We're a mom, so we're going to feel guilty, and it's really not so.
And I love the story, and I'm so sorry that that happened to your family and to you as a mom and to your boy. And I actually want to go deep into that part of. I would want to start with where that mom guilt starts and how much of that is link and wire and handle from social constraints, from expectations, from moms being the default parent, from moms don't having now a village like they used to be to have the support. So it's almost like we are being set up, and I say I agree with you. I will not say one of the most. I said the most difficult and challenging job in the world is ours. Um, but then it's also in our mind we get to this expectation of an unrealistic picture of how we should be doing mom, and I believe that that is where all that guilt start building up because we are comparing ourselves with something that is not real, that is not achievable.
Yes, all of the things that you said. And I think it also, there's a couple of other things. Um, we know what it's like to be a child. And I don't know about you, but I didn't have a perfect childhood and I haven't met anyone who did. And even the ones that did, they still, like, in comparison, it was perfect. But they still had hurts. They still had things that their parents did wrong. And so that creates, like, well, I'm going to do it right. Right. So but there is the social aspect of what a good mom does. And there is, what it boils down to is that we don't take the time to sit down and think, like, what is it that's important to me about being a mom. We, like, pick up our social cues from other people and we see, oh, this mom's making cookies and this mom is doing crafts with her kids. Like, it shows up with me sometimes. A girlfriend of mine was texting me last night saying that she was texting me back infrequently because she was coloring with her son, and I was like, I don't color with my son. Hmm. I If I was a better mom, I'd be coloring with my son. It's like, my son doesn't like to color. So it's in the air, it's in the water. And it's not, and guilt isn't something that we understand either. The way that I've boiled it down for people is that guilt is a notification that what you're doing or not doing is out of alignment with your values, with what you believe is important. So that's where it goes back to, like, we don't do that. We don't know what's important to us. We kind of just go along with, like, well, this person's doing that and this person's doing this and my mom did that, so I'm doing the opposite or I'm doing the exact same thing.
And I love that because can you imagine how powerful it would be for all of us to understand that guilt is just a message that is saying, hey, this is disaligned with your core values? But you're right. We are instead in motherhood like a boat. We are a captain, and wherever the wind is moving. So I love your example of the coloring. Like, that's not important for us. I was actually remembering another guest was telling us about how important was to spend time with your kids. But then she was saying, like, but you need to do it with something that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy cooking and you see these moms cooking with their kids and you are like, oh, I need to cook with them, it's not going to work. But if you like to play Legos, then play Legos. And I think that you touch a really important topic there, and that is how we need to go one step backwards and start by finding what is important to us, what are our values, so we can start comparing that guilt instead of just keep handling that and start being like a golden, shiny object searcher, moving from here and here and here, trying to do everything that we see in social media, like the perfect moms are doing, into more center, like you were saying, from the inside out into these are my values. And I will even say, I want to hear your opinion, because this is something that I believe and am big on. Stop fighting the guilt, because I think that when we feel emotions that the patriarchal world is being labeled as bad emotions, like guilt, like anger, we have two reactions as a woman. We try to suppress it, or we try to ignore it.
Yeah.
And I would say, if that is if we started learning into, oh, I'm feeling guilt. I remember Alicia saying that this is a signal for a misalignment. Oh, the reality is I'm feeling guilt, but this is not misaligned with my values because my son and I actually don't like coloring. Okay, let it go. So I love that, how moms, either pregnant moms or moms in any stage of development, kind of start doing that step backwards to start finding what is really important for them and value, because in this society right now with social media, even that is very difficult to find, because you have
Yeah.
input from so many sources.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, I love that you mentioned that we're chasing shiny things, because that's we are. I mean, social media is putting shiny things in front of us too. But and what I ended up doing with my son last night was he wanted me to jump on the trampoline, but getting up on the trampoline and off the trampoline is my least favorite thing to do. I don't mind once I'm on there. But so I stood outside the trampoline and I threw water balloons into the trampoline for him to catch. And sometimes he caught them and sometimes he didn't. And sometimes they exploded on him, which made us both giggle. So it was like we ended up having fun in our way. And it was enjoyable for both of us. And back to your question about the values is I've experienced figure out your values in two different ways, and one of them was significantly better than the other. So that's the one I'll share. It's like, answer the question, what's important to me? What's important? And then write your answer. What's important to me? And then write your answer. And what's important to me? And write your answer. And if it's this is a really common one for moms is working, right? Because some of us believe that good moms don't work, and some of us believe that a good mom follows their passion, right? So um but if, let's say, if your rule is that a good mom doesn't work and you want to or have to, you have at this point you have two choices. You can change the behavior or you can change the belief. So if you change the behavior, that looks like not working. And if you're a single mom, I don't know about you, but that wasn't an option for me, right? So I had to change the belief. And my belief was that it's actually like a good mom supports her family or helps support her family. And I have been following my passion. So a good mom does that too. My son is printing a 3D printing some it started out, I don't know if you're familiar with Maxwell the cat, but it's this black cat who sits on a perch and he's got a little white stripe on it. You can Google it. It's the cutest cat. um Everybody loves this cat, and he 3D printed the Maxwell cats, and he started selling them at school for $1, and he made like $65 in the first 2 days. And so he's been selling other things too. And he's got this entrepreneurial spirit that he wouldn't have if I hadn't been following my passions his whole life. So it's like, what do you want for your kid? Right? Another exercise that I did was um little boys grow up to emulate their dad. They want to be like their dad, and they want to marry someone like their mom, consciously or subconsciously. That's how it shows up. And so my coach said, write down all the traits. Since I have a son, I wrote down all the traits that I wanted um, for my son to have in a wife, and I've been becoming those traits. because you're not going to tell them to look for this woman. You have to be this woman. And because his dad and I are not married, and his dad lives 8 hours away, and he doesn't see him very often. When I was looking for my partner, I wrote down the traits that I wanted my son to exhibit, and I found a partner that exhibited those traits.
And I
So
love,
yeah,
I
so it just means like go inside and figure out like what is important to you, and if you don't know, play around with it. Do I
I
like
love
this or do I like that?
I love that, and I love that there is so many good things there that you share. One of them is giving ourselves that permission to have what is important for us be different, and that is similar to the guilt, but more like that judgment that if staying at home is important for me, that's fine, and that doesn't mean that at any type of form I should be judging you because your desire is working. Because I think that that is part of what start tripping up that guilt, that we start having comments or questionings from people that have different values that are not productive. We have already enough crap in our lives being moms to also be doing that. But I love what you are saying into, oh, start doing it. And I love that you apply for your son and apply for your partner, because I did it the same way. And it's something that I say every Friday almost, that we have an episode, and is our kids are not going to become who we tell them to become. Our kids are going to become what they watch us to be. So it is important. It is important that, and this is a very nice way into finding your happiness, because I don't think that there is any mom in the planet that don't have as a desire that their child be happy. And circling back into what we were talking before, it's going to be a lot more challenging for for your kid to truly be familiar and accepting and comfortable with the feeling of happiness if they grow up in a house where they didn't saw mom happy, where they only saw mom feeling guilt and moving from one place to another and feeling lost and changing what was important for her, like she changed her underwear, and every time that she saw a new reel she did something different. So let's gonna talk about that second part into finding your happiness and what that means and how we can start that journey for ourselves, and also as the most effective path to achieve one of the goals that every mom has, and is that their children be happy.
Yeah. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I say it a little differently, but they're not watching the show, or they're not listening to the lecture, they're watching the show. So and it's both. They listen to the lecture, but more, but not as much as they're watching the show. Like they do what we do. And I that came from my mother-in-law. Had my son one week, and she texted me and she goes, I know what you do at home because Xander does it here. And I'm like, oh Lord, what did he do, but it was more like I would get irritated that his shoes were never put away. And then one day I looked around and I was like, well, I've got 4 pairs of shoes out in the living room, and so does my partner. So yeah, he hasn't learned he hasn't learned to put his shoes away. That's a sobering reality. Like what you do, your kids will reflect back to you. So if you don't like what your kids are reflecting back to you, look at what you're doing. I know a mom that has told her children, don't say sorry, because if you were actually sorry, you wouldn't have done it in the first place, which is something that I disagree with on a fundamental basis. And I've not met someone who says I'm sorry more than this person. So she's essentially condemning her children for doing something that she does. Right. And so instead of that, like, look, just take a minute and reflect. What, how often am I saying I'm sorry? And how can I model a different behavior for my kids? And it's a lot of pressure, everything that we're saying, because once your eyes are open to this stuff, it's like, oh no, I've got to be perfect. Like, how do I, right? How do I, where do I start? What do I do? How do I, and it's an evolution and there is no perfection. My podcast, which Joe was a guest on, is Imperfect Momming, because we're not perfect and we're not supposed to be. And please don't expect that of yourself, because that's something that's also going to create some guilt. What I've noticed recently, I introduced myself as the mom support coach, and the interviewer said, "What age of children do you support moms with?" And I said, "Well, it actually doesn't matter, because I support the mom, not the kids." So and that can be confusing for moms that don't have a separation between who themselves, like, and the baby. And that's something that comes from cultural programming too, meaning literally the second that you're pregnant, you're no longer you. You're now mom, and people stop asking you about you. They start asking you about the baby. So that if we didn't know who we were before, now we've created this identity of, well, I'm mom. And then when the kids leave the nest, now we're like, well, wait a second, who am I if I'm not mom? And
and
that's what leads to the or what's that called, empty nest syndrome.
and I love that because he's a great into like that part of when you're talking in my previous life with operational excellence and um canny continuous improvement, and is please don't wait until you are 55, 60, 65 and get into a middle life crisis because your kids are in university and now you are empty because you cannot move to the dorm with them. This is the time. If you are pregnant, if you are in the toddler years that are hard as F, because I am in them, and you think that you are not having any time, I think that one of the good messages is it's never too early to start making that separation and say, yeah, I am mom and I am me. And part of that guilt and that finding you happy that I want to talk with you next is that big guilt that a lot of moms feel about taking time for themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, but I'm gonna be away, but the kids are with dad, but I don't have who will take care of them. I am the best person to take care of them. And actually finding that part of as more you can do some of those things that make you happy outside them,
Hmm.
as happier you're going to be at home, and as more you're going to teach them that. Because talking about what you were saying before, that they are watching the show, I love that. If you tell your kids that the only thing that make you happy is them, and that the only things that bring happiness to you are around of their world, like, please pause for a second and start thinking what kind of message subconsciously you are giving your children. Is a message of codependency, of
Right.
my entire world is around you, my entire universe turns around you. Yeah, as a mom you can say, oh, I'm a perfect mom because my world is them. How much more exposed they are going to be when they grow up to narcissist behaviors, to narcissist relationships, to be abused, to have codependence relationships, all of those things that as an adult are not healthy. So it's going to talk about that, finding your happiness and how you can fight that mom guilt to actually take a space for yourself, to take a space to do the things that you like to do that are not child related.
Yeah. And I know that this is, more parenting than relationships. But one of the conversations that I've had with my partner is that I can't fulfill every single one of your needs, and you can't fulfill every single one of mine. And like, we need other people in our lives, we need other things to be whole and well-rounded people, just like what you were saying. And I do remember, like, when I was pregnant, I got put on bed rest, and I was kind of excited about that because I got to cross stitch a lot. And I've been cross stitching since I was 12 years old. And um, I I thought, it's the the dogs are like saying hi to my partner and my son, as they're waking up and starting their day. Um, but I remember thinking, I better get in all the cross stitch that I can now, because I'm not gonna get to cross stitch for the next 18 years. And that was a conscious thought that I had, which you know, which ended up not being true, because I love cross stitching. It's something that makes me happy. I did stop writing for probably 12 years, but I stopped before that for another reason and before my son was born. But when I got back into it, I remember how I used to write, where I would like get caught up in the characters, and I would stay up till 3 in the morning. I'd get so in the zone that I had no awareness of anything. And so a big fear of mine was, well, what if I get into the zone and I forget to pick my son up? And my coach was like, well, could you set an alarm on your phone so that it goes off when it's time to go pick him up? And I was like, sure. But had she not supported me with that, I probably never would have started writing again. So it's the remembering the things that you used to do before you were a mom, and making sure that made you happy, not necessarily just anything that you used to do, like the things that filled you up, that brought you joy. If you're a runner, I'm not, but if you are and you enjoy running, the same friend who likes to color with her son, who was coloring with her son last night, she's super into weightlifting, and her son comes to the gym with her. Like, they have a gym in their house, and he works out when he wants to with her. It's like, there's we do look at these little kids like, we have to, speaking of, we have to, like, um do everything for them, instead of like having them do things with us and introduce them into some of the things that we're passionate about.
Good morning, buddy. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And I think that one of the important things there that we are um, embracing is it is okay. And I love how you make the example of the gym and the running, because monkey see, monkey do. Like, it's
Mhm.
going to be a lot more effective for our kids to start exploring and getting used to it, to healthy behaviors, when they see that we have healthy behaviors that I'm happy. Okay, I'm cross stitching. Maybe my son will not like cross stitching, but because he see me doing that art, maybe he will paint. Maybe he will just sit down next to me and write while I cross stitch, or the gym. Like, I was actually last week in my gym. There was a stepmom that goes to the gym, and she was posting in our group with tears because um her step daughter finished her first like big race. And then at the end of the race, because this girl work out every day, has been work she loved working out and it's not negotiable for her. And she said that it was very touching for her that at the end, her stepdaughter wanted to take a picture with her, and the comment was a little bit around, "You were my inspiration to do something that I love and exercise every day." And She doesn't go to the gym and do weights like her stepmom does, but that helped her to find that strength into doing something. So I love what you are saying, and the fun thing, and this is something that will also help so much with guilt. Going back into your coloring story, we also think that we need to do child oriented activities in order for us to be with them and have fun. And a lot of times is actually bringing them into our activities and have fun. Like for example, my husband loves gardening, and when he's watching my son Elliot, he doesn't stay here. Sometimes he loves Legos, so they play Legos, but sometimes he just say, "Hey, put your hat and come help daddy. Can you help me to put water on the plants?" And I think that I would love to hear your opinion that too, that we have this preconcept, and I will tell you I really believe that is because by marketing they want us to buy all these products for children, so they are always telling us this is how you spend time with them and this is how you create memories. And a lot of times you can do that in a more win-win situation when you are having quality time connecting with them and also doing something that you love.
Mhm. And one thing that I've done with him is that we have when he was 11, we started doing one night a week where he would help me with dinner. And the reason for this is because I'm not a cook. And so I wanted to pass along to him the ability to feed himself without being out of a box, right? So one day a week we would make something together. And now that he's 12, we're doing it 2 days a week. So um, we'll stop at 3 days a week because I feel like if you cook 3 days a week, you probably have enough leftovers to feed yourself for the most part. But he's gonna get a variety of learn how to cook a bunch of different things. And when he wants eggs, he'll go make them himself. When he started, I don't know where he heard about putting eggs in ramen noodle soup, but he loves ramen noodle soup, and I would like him to have something that has some protein in it. And he's like, well, let's throw an egg in there. And that was his idea. I was like, where'd you hear about that? And I still don't remember. I don't remember what he said, but it's like he but he asked me, like, how do we do this? And like, will you help me? And so we made ramen soup with egg in it.
And I
And
love, I love two things that you are pointing there and that one. And I need to tell all the moms that are listening, like walking the talk like Alicia is doing allows you to enjoy your 12-year-old that is already a preteen cuddling with you when he woke up. I think that that is just a very clear image of what they are, what she's doing and what she's doing right. And then the other one that is being a lot into what you are sharing is we don't have to do this alone. We don't have to figure out this out by ourselves. And how many times she replied, my coach, I work with my coach. And that is why it's so critical to have people like Alicia, like me, as part of your community, because the reality is like something as simple as the alarm. Sometimes we are so much into the eye of the tornado that we just don't see some obvious solutions. Like she was like, oh, can you put an alarm? And you were like, duh, why I never
right.
thought about that. So I love, 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 love that. Now let's gonna start talking a little bit about your acronym, the PEACE, PEACE, and how moms can learn what is that piece and how they can increase it.
Yeah, so there are 5 things that I've collected that have the ability to increase or decrease our peace. And that's the pertinent people in our life, those primary important people, um, our emotions, our handle on our emotions, our assets, our physical surrounding, our schedules, so the chaos, um, or the and exhaustion, so our self care. So I walk through on my consultations a peace assessment. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being where you'd ultimately like to be in the relationship with the pertinent people in your life, um, where would you rank yourself? And, if you're a 5, what would it take? Well, number one, why so high? Because you could be a 4. You could have said a 3. You could have said a 2, So why so high? Because most people don't think that 5 is high. Like, that's kind of middle of the road. Like, it's not terrible, but it's not great. So what are you doing right already? What is it that you're enjoying about the relationships in your life? And then take that 5 and how can we make it a 6? Because that's another thing that we want to do is we're like, oh no, I'm a 5. I bet, how do I get to a 10? You get to a 10 by going to 6 first. So what can you do that's calendarable, measurable, observable, specific? I think that spells smart if there's an R in there. Um, it's kind of like the SMART goals, but it's things that somebody else can see you doing and know that you did it, because your brain loves specifics, loves it. It does not understand vagueness. So if your goal is more time with your kids, that's not specific enough, because 1 minute more than yesterday is more. And if that's good, then great. Congratulations. That's super easy to do. If I want more money and I find a quarter, I now have more money, right? So we want to be specific. I want, like, if I was at a 5 with my son, and a 6 would be cuddling with him in the morning for 5 minutes every day, I've achieved that today. And for how long? How many days in a row would get me from a 5 to a 6?
I love that, and I would love for all the moms that are listening us around the world to write this down. You get to a 10 by going to a 6. And that is one of those huge things on that guilt that we were talking before about. Our mind goes into comparison all the time, and that is one of the things that I think that has been so toxic for motherhood in the last 2 decades, that we have social media. So 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you didn't have many reference to check. You didn't have many other moms to compare, because you had maybe a couple of friends, your family, and that's it. But now you have all the moms on Instagram, all the moms on Facebook, all the moms of YouTube. So that allow you to. Buddy, it was so good to see you, and thank you for cuddling mommy so nicely. It was super cool. I hope that you keep selling a lot of things at school. That is super good. Let me know when you get your first million. I'm gonna be cheering up for you. But then that mom guilt into comparing ourselves, it make it harder and make it um, challenging for us to go into, oh, 6 is progress. We immediately say like, oh, I need to compare my 5 with a 10. Of I need to compare my 5, for example, my baby doesn't cuddle like that, like your son just cuddled. So I compare my 5 with your 10, but then I love what you say. We need to, in order to get to 10, we need to start moving to 6, because that is what is going to give you that sustainable improvement that will get you to 10. If you just sprint into 10, it's going to be so much out of your comfort zone. It's going to be so much out of your routine. It's going to be so different that your own reptile brain is going to sabotage you. Your own reptile brain is going to be like, nope. And then you go into that hamster wheel of more guilt. I even try and I fail. So I think that that is such a powerful reminder of how important baby steps are, and how we are in a marathon, not a sprint. Is important that we pace ourselves to keep improving
Yeah.
towards the goal that we want, because it's different for all of us. Going back to what you said before, what is important for you? What are your values?
Yeah. And you made a really good point about, you said something about, feeling guilty about not taking care of yourself. And and I've been recently acknowledging that there are moms out there right now that their cup isn't just empty. They always say fill your cup first, and give from the overflow, and that's a beautiful sentiment. And there's some moms whose cups are shattered on the floor. And when you hear something like, give yourself, take care of yourself and have self-care, like that might add more guilt, because like you're like, I can barely put the pieces of this cup back together, let alone fill it and give from the overflow. And so if you're that mom and you're in the one, right, or maybe you're a -5 on the scale of 1 to 10, um, it's again, you're -5. How can you get to -4? What's one thing? And it doesn't have to be go take a bath. It doesn't have to be go get a massage. It can be like, if that's your situation, my invitation is to do an energy audit, which means, what are the things that I'm doing? Period. What are the things that I'm doing? And make a list of all the things that you're doing. What are the things on this list that give me energy, and what are the things that take my energy? Now, if all the things that are you're doing are taking your energy, this is why your cup is broken on the floor. So then make a list of things that give you energy. What is it that you do enjoy doing? Do you enjoy cuddling with your kid? Because that gives me energy. Like, that is my fill in my love bucket all day long. And what are the things on your energy out list that you can delete, delegate, delay? There might be another D that I don't remember, but you don't have to do it all. It doesn't all have to be yours to do.
I absolutely love that. That's one of my big mantras. You don't have to do it all, because, and then probably it's going to be for another show. But if you are at that point of mind of five, there's a big chances that you are a overgiver. And then I love your very practical, all the things that I do, and I start confronting and say, okay, how much of this gives me energy, and how much of this is just me giving energy and taking energy from me? Super, super, super powerful. And then I love that. It's just like one little thing. Sometimes it's as simple as start working in our own inner child and healing, and that healthy boundaries that allows to actually start clearing things from that list first before we have time to self-care. So I love how you are making it very clear that there is not one road that goes to Rome. There are so many different ways depending on where you are. If you are at one, the path is going to be different than if you are at -5, that if you are at 7. And that is why it's important that we don't increase that guilt when we are doing it. Alysia, thank you so much for being here. It was a big pleasure. I love everything that you said. I love having the energy of your entrepreneur son with us today. Thank you for being so real. And before we go, can you please share with the audience how they can keep learning from you? If they love what they hear, if they want to have you in their corner, where they can reach out to you?
So I am on Instagram at Mom Guilt Coach, and on YouTube at Mom Guilt Coach as well. And my podcast is Imperfect Momming: Better Parenting Through Self Healing, which you can find Joe's episode on there as well.
Thank you so, so much, Alysia, for being here and for breaking that cliche concept of guilt into so many actionable things that allow us to actually realize that it's not something that we need to just assume as part of motherhood. We actually can, like you were saying at the beginning, you can actually ditch the mom guilt and find your happiness and raise your children from that place of happiness. It was a pleasure having you here. And for everybody in the audience, please make sure to reach out to Alysia. Uh, our social media, my social media, Joy Unicorn Coach. Let us know what was your favorite part of the show. And also remember that this show can be heard in the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.